Hey everybody, Justin here. I just finished up week 36 of 52 Kinds of Love. Here's how it went. So this past week was dedicated to Dr. Herbert Martin, and there's a door on there, and I'll tell you that little story of why. So Dr. Herbert Martin was one of my poetry professors at Dayton, and one time when he was trying to explain a lesson to us and we weren't quite understanding what he was trying to put out there, and we couldn't make the analogy or the connection, he decided to walk out through the door and not come back. And I just always remember that as, a moment. Okay, we needed to work harder. We needed to try harder. We needed to put in more effort. And right before he left, he said a quote, and I'm not sure I'm 100%, but I feel like I'm 99 on it. And he said, I just decided I don't come cheap. I just decided I don't come cheap. And he was talking about value and worth that we have as people and as our time. And if people aren't putting in energy or time or effort to meet you halfway, then maybe you don't have to put in your time or effort or energy on the other half. It's a two-way street. Unless you're going to put in something to it, then he decided that at that moment his worth, wasn't cheap. It wasn't free. He wasn't going to hand it to you. You had to work for it. So, while it was a funny story, I totally agree with the importance of that, and we have to be aware and cognizant of where we are putting our time, where we are giving our time, and hopefully we get something back from that. That we're appreciated for who we are. So, so that's why there's a little door on his card. So, being that he was my poetry professor, I was trying to catch up on his poems. And here's his book that I was trying to get caught up on for the week. Oh, excuse me. So, getting a little bit into, hearing about his voice, and we talked about as poets, how do we find our voice, and sometimes it takes a lifetime to find our voice, and we still might not even do so. That's kind of a lesson that transferred over from last week. We talked about failure, and how a lot of the times, maybe only like 1% of our poems would be accepted into into being published into a zine or a magazine or a journal or a collection of poems. So you have to accept 99% failure, and where else is that an acceptable rate of failure? And not many places that we could think of. So that was something else we talked about. And then one thing that I like that he said, he kind of connected math and poetry, trying to put together my two sides of my brain. And his quote was talking about the images that you make, and he said that you need to be very clear and concise with the images that you make in a poem. And he said the images will add or subtract or divide into an ultimate sum, into an ultimate total. And I really didn't start dissecting that until after he said it, even after our phone call was over. And I thought about, okay, what images would I create that would add? And I thought about trying to build a picture and piece together a picture or a formation of an idea to get somebody to look at things the same way that you do. Or maybe there's things that you need to subtract. So maybe you needed to take out a part and take out a part here and take out a part here. Maybe you had to figure out what exactly was happening based on the images in the poem. Or sometimes they would divide and they would split up and separate into parts. So this one thing could lead to 3 here, and this one thing could lead to 3 here, and it might separate that way. So I thought that was pretty cool to connect those two ideas, especially being a math teacher who writes poetry and working both sides of my brain. But to really start to analyze the next time that I write a poem, what do I want the reader to do? Do I just want them to read a story and collect my thoughts? Do I want them to build up something and create something in their imagination? Or do I want them to analyze and break down that poem and figure out every little single part that goes into that? So, definitely gonna think about that twice the next time I sit down to write. So I appreciate Dr. Martin's time that he gave me. I still got to connect with his humor, with his voice, I could feel his presence even though it was just a phone call. I really got reminded of who he was from 8 years ago and why he was so important for me in terms of poetry. So there you go. As we head into next week, and it will be Matt Maroon. So check in next week, see who Matt Maroon is, why there's a poor drawing of Africa on there, and how the week goes. Bye. Peace. 52 kinds of love.